All right, so we are going to speak now with Mr. Martin George, attorney at law, on this very troubling issue of Mr. Hughes, the blogger, who is imprisoned here in Trinidad and Tobago. All right, so are we ready with Mr. George? All right. No. Well, what we'll do...
Good morning.
Yes, okay. Good morning, Mr. Martin George.
Yes. Good morning to you, Brother B. Good morning, Mr. Cox.
Good morning,
Yes.
good morning.
Brother B, I understand that you all are the #1 show in Ukraine, in Yugoslavia, in Bosnia, all over the world. They are listening to you. They are hearing your voice. Just keep it up. You all are doing wonderful work.
And where in the
people
world are you now,
listening.
Mr. George? So you're in Florida, driving about the place. You're feeling like what? I'm back when you know. Watch yourself. All right, let's get into this very serious matter. All right, so Mr. Hughes, the international blogger who has he came to Trinidad and highlighted one of Trinidad, I call it the Trinidad and Tobago shame, where criminals have a way of life here and they live comfortably. And this was highlighted, that they have their guns and so on. And this gentleman is arrested for sedition. And based on what sedition is, based on what Google is saying, and it is a conduct, or sedition is a conduct or speech inciting people to rebel against the authority or state or a monarch. Give us your perspective from an attorney standpoint.
Yes, hi. Okay, good morning all again. Brother B, what I find amazing about this whole scenario is that we are taking this unknown, and I mean, I say this with the greatest of deference and respect to Mr. Hughes, but in the grand scheme of crime fighting and crime and criminality in Trinidad and Tobago, he is an unknown and he is largely irrelevant. So I don't understand why the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is parading this as some success or some victory in the fight against crime. This is making not one single dent in the fight against the gangs by arresting and charging this man. Why don't you charge the actual gangsters, the actual gang leaders? Yeah. Why don't you actually go out and arrest some of the gang members who you saw in the video? You know, I mean, the absurdity of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service to be putting this over to the public as if, well, yes, we are making success. Come on, don't insult our intelligence. What is this doing? Is this going to reduce crime and criminality in Trinidad and Tobago by arresting and charging this man? The man has shone a spotlight, and as uncomfortable a truth as it is, that is the reality of what is going on in Trinidad and Tobago. So if the authorities are embarrassed by this, then I would say then they need to understand what ordinary citizens are facing on a daily basis, Brother B. You look in the newspapers every day, it's somebody's house being broken into, home invasions, carjackings, people being held up, their business places being robbed, even in Tobago. Let's understand the reality. Lotto booths, small mini marts being robbed in Tobago, payrolls being stolen. Come on, let's understand what is going on and not be distracted by this sideshow that the police service is trying to portray by, arresting and charging this man, and charging him with sedition. Really? Have they even read or understood the Privy Council decision in the Mahasabha case that dealt with the issue of sedition? If you recall, when Satmaraj was charged for sedition, right, and the Mahasabha, they challenged the constitutionality of the sedition laws on the books, and Justice Frank Sipasad at first instance ruled in their favor. The Court of Appeal overturned him, and then it went to the Privy Council. The Privy Council upheld the Court of Appeal ruling and held that the sedition laws in Trinidad and Tobago were constitutionally correct and they were valid. But more importantly, the Privy Council had this to say. To the contrary, the board is of the opinion that were such a case to arise, there would be much to be said for the proposition that applying the principles of legality and quite apart from any constitutional consideration, the true interpretation of the act, right? So that's the Sedition Act, is such that there is implied into it a requirement that there must be an intention to incite violence or disorder. Indeed, this appeared to be accepted on behalf of the respondent at the hearing before the board. So in other words, you have to show that there's an intention to incite violence or disorder. Where is that in what this man did? Why is the police service wasting their collective time, effort, and resources pursuing this man when you're not going after the criminal? So in other words, you're shooting the messenger, but you're losing the whole message. The man is highlighting the extent and the effect of gangs and the gang culture in Trinidad and Tobago. But instead of dealing with that, you're dealing with the man who has shone the spotlight, and you arrest him and charge him. Gotta be, we as ordinary citizens, we have to start picking sense from nonsense. We must not allow ourselves to be fooled by sideshows and distractions. We must not allow our authorities and the persons in charge to fool us with these frivolities.
Mr. George.
This has nothing to do with attacking crime and criminality. We need to understand that. Let's not get caught up with this nonsense, and then now they're going out to dig into the man's background to say, well, in Somalia, he was, either arrested or dealt with in Somalia and Cuba. Those things are irrelevant. What
Mr. George,
relevance does this have for fighting crime in Trinidad and Tobago?
Excellent.
Mr. George, what a way to start in terms of providing context and an overview. And I like the fact that you brought in the Satmaraj case there. There was also a case with Mr. Duke right here in Tobago.
Watson Duke. Yes, he was also charged for sedition, and those charges were subsequently discontinued. You had Yassin Abu Bakr was charged for sedition for the speech he made. Remember, if you all recall, on the Eid sermon that he gave, where he spoke about the zakat. The tax, and he was charged for sedition. He was actually tried for sedition. That ended up in a hung jury, and a retrial was ordered, but Mr. Bakr passed away before that retrial could occur.
Yes, so what I want to point to now is, from your understanding, I guess using the legal terms and referencing the law, to use the content that is seen by many on Christmas Liss's blog or his channel, what does the anti-gang law, or you can correct me, which one of the laws speaks directly to using the messages or the content that you're seeing on the videos to eventually arrest the gang members or even charge? What speak directly to what legality can the TTPS impose to make these arrests apart from Mr. Hughes?
Right, so the point is, and that's the point I'm making. If it were that they said, well, look, we have studied the videos and we thank Mr. Hughes for highlighting this and interviewing these persons, and we are now going to go out and have a conversation with these fine young gentlemen. If you understand me, because they weren't afraid to show their faces in the videos. They weren't afraid to show the guns and whatever that they had. So you have the identity. You could go out and find them. That's what you should be focusing on, instead of making this big song and dance and this show of arresting the person who made the video. Brother B, here's the absurdity of this. Shows like this that we are doing here now, we highlight issues and we highlight problems in Trinidad and Tobago. So if it is that, for instance, we were able to discuss and be able to show, well, hey, look, this is a problem in Trinidad and Tobago. Here we have an interview from known gangsters. What they're going to say? Well, look, Brother B is promoting sedition. It's as stupid as that, and that's why I urge the public to reject this and reject this attempt by the TTPS to pull wool over our eyes and make it look like they're doing something to fight gang culture in Trinidad and Tobago. They are doing nothing in that regard by arresting and charging this man. Go and arrest and charge the gangsters and the gang leaders. That's who you should be arresting and charging.
Mr. George, you and I are saying this very same thing. I was saying that earlier to my colleague. But however, let's go now to the Canadian Embassy and the role it can play in protecting its citizens This embassy would have provided him with attorney and all the necessaries to ensure that he is in good health and is taken care of. I want to juxtapose the American citizen as opposed to a Canadian citizen. And I said earlier, and I want you to fix it, just in case I may have said something that may be challenging. Had that been American citizen, would Trinidad and Tobago take that action against him?
Well, I can't say. I can't speak for, what the authorities in the TTPS would do, But, I mean, what I'm saying, Brother B, is that when one looks at it, it appears to be heavy-handed. It appears to be nothing but, a PR stunt by the police. And I am deeply disappointed in them for, trying to portray this as effective crime fighting. It's as palpably absurd as the stupid exercises they engage in at 8 o'clock or 7:30 on a Monday morning, where they have a whole battalion of officers on the streets holding a roadblock. All they're doing is disturbing and inconveniencing ordinary law-abiding citizens. But they make this big show. Yes, they're fighting crime. 7:30 on a Monday morning, when people just trying to get to work, trying to get to school, trying to drop off children, trying to, go about their normal business. You're having a roadblock and inconveniencing everybody, and you're portraying this as you're fighting crime. How stupid could that be? The criminals done home in their mother house sleeping.
Very good.
They're
All
not
right,
out
George,
about 7:30 on a morning. Come on, let's be serious now.
I want to stay with
in this place.
Yeah, I want to stay with the immigration laws. Let's say, for example, a citizen may have been, held by immigration for some reason or the other and had to be held overnight. What's the duration for an individual to be deported? Or the duration of time that can be, that person, let's say that, for example, as we are claiming that this guy has broken the sedition law and is in there, how long should that individual be held? Let's say a Trinidad citizen is held in New York and is to be deported. The first available flight, that individual is back in the country. Let's speak to that and the ramifications, if not guided along that way, and hold this individual longer than is necessary. What can be the implications?
Okay, all right. So two things. You're conflating two issues there, Brother B. So we need to disaggregate them. Number one would be the question of a breach of immigration laws and the question of deportation.
Yes.
That is totally separate and apart from the fact that if someone is charged with a criminal offense otherwise and has to be brought before the courts, in that case, that person can be held with or without bail until the court date. All right, so he has a court date today and he's supposed to appear in court, and of course he has been held in custody for that period. Now, I saw his attorneys or somebody representing his interests, I'm not sure who it was, but I heard talk about them filing an application of habeas corpus. Now, an application of habeas corpus is an application that can be made to the High Court where somebody is being wrongfully detained or wrongfully kept in custody, so that you order them to produce that person. But if it is that he's been held pending his court appearance and he's been denied bail in that circumstance, then I'm not sure an application for habeas corpus is necessarily the right approach. But if it were that, for instance, he was being held without being charged, and you go past the minimum 48 or 72-hour time period, and you are still holding him, you are not charging him, you're not letting him go, then I could say an application for habeas corpus is definitely appropriate, and the High Court has in many, many instances acted in circumstances such as that. And you don't even have to be a national of Trinidad and Tobago. If you recall, there have been cases in the past where Venezuelan nationals who were held in the detention center, they were able to get successful applications for habeas corpus. Right? So the law applies equally whether you are a citizen or non-citizen when it comes to the violation of your rights to your freedom. So in other words, if you are arrested and charged and being held pending your court date, right? And I mean, of course, that can't be an unreasonable period if you are denied bail, then of course you are validly in custody. But if you are not charged at all, and the police are holding you past, as I say, the normal 48 to 72 hour period, and they're still keeping you there, then you could apply for habeas corpus. So
Okay.
that's one side of it. Now, as regards the immigration laws, if it were that someone came into the country illegally, right? And that's the difference, because that's not the case that I understand them to be making here. I don't think anybody is saying that he came into the country illegally. What I saw is that they were speaking about a breach of the immigration laws as it relates to a work permit. So basically, they were saying that, look, by him doing his videos and, broadcasting it, or maybe getting money from selling it or whatever, reproducing it, that he was working in Trinidad and Tobago, and he did so without a permit. But the point is, the law also provides that, look, for up to 30 days, you can engage in your business in Trinidad and Tobago, even without a work permit. So again, I'm not sure where they're going with these things gonna be. I am really not sure where they're going with it, and why they have the whole nation, chasing behind this rabbit hole. It's like Alice in Wonderland. That's how I feel in this whole scenario. Look at what happened last night in the hospital with the shooting that occurred there and somebody being murdered in a hospital. Why aren't we dealing with those things? Why aren't we putting a stop to those things? Why aren't they parading the persons who committed that shooting and say, look, we've arrested them, we have them in custody, we're going and charge them? That, I will say, would be a success. That, I would say, would be doing something in the fight against crime. Not this, sideshow and this puppet show, muppet show that they are engaging in with this clown from Canada. The man is of no consequence or relevance to the crime-fighting initiatives in Trinidad and Tobago.
All right.
But Mr. George, just before we leave, as you dubbed it, the side show, the Muppet Show, just want to get clear. The TTPS, the TTPS said that he was detained, interviewed, and informed of his allegations, right? And they also went on to speak about seizure of his equipment and so on. In terms of what can legally be done with the using his footage, whether it be footage that was displayed on his social media pages and so on, or even footage that probably wasn't even edited, can the TTPS use those footage as intel to eventually pursue any other persons that they want to pursue? Just give us context with regards to that approach.
As part of your investigation, there's nothing wrong with you using material such as that to say, well, hey, listen, okay, I'm seeing the face of this individual. We could identify who this individual is. We can go out and interview this individual. Have a conversation. That's what I'm saying. So in other words, okay, if it is that you saw someone brandishing a firearm in a video, okay, then, and you could identify, you could track down and find out who it is, then the next natural thing I think the TTPS would want to do is to go out and, have a meeting with this fine young gentleman and inquire, well, can you produce your firearm user's license to show that you are the valid holder of a firearm and the rounds of ammunition that, you may have? And if you don't have it, then the conversation will take a different turn. That's what we should be doing. That's what we should be focusing on, or maybe having conversations with them. Okay, all right, who are the other members of this gang? What do you do? What is your source of income? How do you explain the wealth that you have accumulated? That's what you should be doing with this material instead of shooting the messenger and ignoring the message, because that basically is what they are doing here.
Okay. Yeah. All right, Mr. George, and so clearly, all right. So let's say that they persist with this sedition case, or what they are claiming that has. Well, based on what you're saying, this really doesn't have a place, because in the video you asked earlier, just like I've asked, where is the intent to incite? Nothing was said by him.
Incite violence or disorder. Exactly. That's what the Privy Council said. Right. Where do you see that from him?
Yeah, and we're not seeing it. All right. So Is there option for lawsuit against the state from this gentleman and maybe the, I don't know, where can this go? Where can this go? Let's say today the matter is tried and it persists longer than this week. What can be the legal action that this individual can take?
All right, so if it is that the matter is tried and heard and eventually dismissed, then of course there could be the question of malicious prosecution. And I would think that there is very fertile and fecund material here for a malicious prosecution case, because given the clear guidance which the Privy Council gave you in previous sedition matters that you tried to bring, where they warned you, they said, hey, listen, you must show that there is a clear intention to incite violence or disorder. If you were not able to see that or show that ab initio, why did you charge this man for sedition? And if the charges are dismissed based on that, then I think he would have an excellent case for malicious prosecution to sue the state. So therefore, again, you have this whole exercise. If you think back, Brother B, remember when there was this whole big pappy show about arresting all these gang leaders under the Anti-Gang Act, and they rounded up all these persons, etc., without really doing their due diligence, if you understand me. And then they eventually had to shamefacedly let them go one by one, and then they faced a series of lawsuits from these individuals against the state. So again, it looks like we are going down the same road again, unfortunately this time with an international spotlight shining on us. So we are looking like the greatest of idiots, because the definition of madness is you're doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Where should the Attorney General, should this be, I mean, we as citizens are looking on and hoping that it doesn't go south. Is there a place for the Attorney General, the Minister of National Security, and I don't know, maybe the Canadian Embassy, to have a conversation to treat with this matter and to ensure that it does not further embarrass us, Mr. George? Is there any option for that level of conversation to be had?
Not at this stage, because the charges have already been laid and instituted. The only person who has the power to discontinue the prosecution at this point would be the DPP.
Okay, the DPP.
It's only the DPP who can discontinue the prosecution.
Okay. All right. Mr. George, this is really concerning, and I'm glad that you are passionate as a citizen and as an attorney would have shared what you would have shared with us. And clearly, you and I echo the same sentiments. When I heard that, I was very upset, just like you are. And given that we could look bad internationally, and let's hope that the international media doesn't reach down here to make this even more messy.
Exactly, and continue the pappy show.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. We want to thank you for being with us this morning, and always a pleasure.
Thanks to you, and thanks to Mr. Cox.
Very good.
No problem.